Question 1. Process analysis reveals that the Andong National University Admissions Committee is reviewing an applicant whose high school grades are slightly below the average for admitted students, but who has demonstrated exceptional leadership in extracurricular activities and a compelling personal essay outlining a unique research interest relevant to their chosen field. Considering the university's stated commitment to admitting students with diverse talents and potential, which of the following approaches best aligns with the established admission framework and ethical considerations for university entrance exams in Korea? Option A. Conduct a holistic review of the applicant's entire application, weighing academic performance alongside demonstrated leadership, personal qualities, and potential for contribution to the university community in accordance with Andong National University's admission guidelines. Option B. Base the decision primarily on the subjective impression of the admissions committee members regarding the applicant's personality during a brief, informal interview. Option C. Reject the applicant outright due to their academic grades falling below the typical threshold, prioritizing only quantitative academic performance metrics. Option D. Prioritize the applicant's score on a standardized aptitude test, disregarding other aspects of their application if this score is not exceptionally high. The correct answer is A. Conduct a holistic review of the applicant's entire application, weighing academic performance alongside demonstrated leadership, personal qualities, and potential for contribution to the university community in accordance with Andong National University's admission guidelines. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge for the admissions committee at Andong National University, requiring them to balance the university's commitment to academic excellence with the need for fair and equitable evaluation of applicants. The core difficulty lies in interpreting and applying the university's stated admission criteria, particularly when faced with an applicant whose profile presents both strengths and weaknesses that do not fit a simple, predefined mold. The committee must navigate potential biases, ensure consistency in their decision-making, and uphold the integrity of the entrance examination process as governed by Andong National University's internal regulations and the relevant guidelines set by the Korean Ministry of Education concerning university admissions. The correct approach involves a holistic review that meticulously assesses the applicant's academic record, extracurricular achievements, and personal statement against the established criteria. This method prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of the applicant's potential and suitability for the chosen program, aligning with the university's stated goals of admitting well-rounded individuals. This approach is ethically sound and procedurally fair, as it adheres to the spirit and letter of Andong National University's admission guidelines, which emphasize a balanced evaluation. It also aligns with the Ministry of Education's directives on transparent and merit-based admissions, preventing arbitrary decisions. An incorrect approach that relies solely on a single metric, such as a specific test score, fails to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of academic potential and the university's stated desire for diverse talents. This narrow focus risks overlooking promising candidates who may excel in other areas, thereby violating the principle of comprehensive evaluation and potentially leading to an unfair outcome. It also disregards the university's own stated criteria that likely encompass more than just one quantitative measure. Another incorrect approach that involves making a decision based on anecdotal evidence or personal impressions, rather than objective criteria, introduces subjectivity and the potential for bias. This deviates from the established procedural fairness expected in university admissions and undermines the credibility of the selection process. Such an approach is ethically problematic, as it prioritizes personal judgment over established guidelines and could lead to discriminatory practices, which are contrary to the principles of equitable access to education. A further incorrect approach that involves seeking external influence or pressure to sway the decision is a direct violation of ethical conduct and university regulations. This undermines the integrity of the admissions process, creates an unfair advantage for the applicant in question, and erodes trust in the university's commitment to meritocracy. It is a serious breach of professional responsibility and likely contravenes specific clauses within Andong National University's Code of Conduct for admissions committees and potentially broader ethical guidelines for educational institutions. Professionals in this situation should employ a structured decision-making process. This begins with a thorough understanding of all relevant university admission policies and Ministry of Education guidelines. The committee should then systematically evaluate the applicant against each criterion, documenting the evidence and reasoning for their assessment. When faced with ambiguity, the committee should consult within the group, referencing the established criteria and seeking consensus based on objective evaluation. If further clarification is needed, they should refer to the designated university officials responsible for interpreting admission policies. This systematic and transparent approach ensures fairness, consistency, and adherence to regulatory frameworks. Question 2. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for bias in the evaluation of international applicants for the upcoming academic year at Andong National University. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the university's admission regulations and South Korean educational guidelines for ensuring a fair and objective admissions process? Option A. Prioritizing applicants who demonstrate strong leadership potential and community involvement, even if their academic scores are below the stated minimum requirements, to enhance the university's global profile. Option B. Allowing individual admissions committee members to exercise significant discretion in interpreting applicant qualifications based on their personal judgment and perceived potential, with a focus on attracting applicants from countries with strong economic ties to South Korea. Option C. Establishing informal quotas for applicants from specific regions to ensure geographical diversity, without explicit mention of these quotas in the official admission policies. Option D. Implementing a holistic review process that strictly adheres to the predefined weighting of academic achievements, standardized test scores, extracurricular activities, and personal essays as outlined in the official Andong National University Admissions Handbook, ensuring all committee members are trained on these specific criteria and potential biases. The correct answer is D. Implementing a holistic review process that strictly adheres to the predefined weighting of academic achievements, standardized test scores, extracurricular activities, and personal essays as outlined in the official Andong National University Admissions Handbook, ensuring all committee members are trained on these specific criteria and potential biases. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the university's need to attract a diverse and talented student body and the imperative to maintain academic integrity and fairness in the admissions process. The admissions committee must navigate the complexities of evaluating applicants holistically, while adhering strictly to the Andong National University's established admission guidelines and relevant South Korean educational regulations. The pressure to meet enrollment targets or to favor certain applicant profiles, if not managed carefully, can lead to ethical breaches and regulatory noncompliance. The correct approach involves a systematic and objective evaluation of all applicants based on the criteria clearly defined in the Andong National University's admission regulations. This includes a thorough review of academic records, extracurricular achievements, personal statements, and any required interviews or assessments, ensuring that each component is weighed according to the established rubric. This method upholds the principle of equal opportunity and fairness, which is a cornerstone of educational admissions under South Korean law and university policy. It ensures that decisions are transparent, defensible, and free from bias, thereby safeguarding the university's reputation and the integrity of its academic programs. An incorrect approach that relies on subjective impressions or personal biases of committee members is professionally unacceptable. This would violate the university's stated admission criteria and potentially contravene principles of administrative fairness mandated by South Korean educational law, which requires objective and equitable treatment of all applicants. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes applicants based on factors not explicitly outlined in the admission guidelines, such as perceived future financial contributions or personal connections, would be a clear ethical failure and a violation of the university's commitment to merit-based admissions. Such actions undermine the trust placed in the admissions committee and can lead to legal challenges and reputational damage. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes adherence to established policies and regulations. This involves understanding the specific legal and ethical landscape governing higher education admissions in South Korea, including the guidelines set forth by the Ministry of Education and the internal regulations of Andong National University. When faced with ambiguous situations or pressure to deviate from standard procedures, professionals should consult with supervisors or legal counsel to ensure compliance. The process should be documented meticulously, with clear justifications for all decisions, promoting accountability and transparency. Question 3. Governance review demonstrates that the admissions process for the Andong National University entrance exam is experiencing significant delays, impacting candidate experience and administrative workload. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical considerations for optimizing this process? Option A. Introducing a new, unapproved software system for application management that promises faster processing, but has not undergone any security audits or compatibility checks with existing university systems. Option B. Expediting the processing of all applications by reducing the number of verification steps for submitted documents, assuming most applicants are truthful. Option C. Prioritizing the reduction of processing time by outsourcing document verification to external agencies without a thorough due diligence process or clear contractual obligations regarding data security and adherence to exam regulations. Option D. Implementing a phased introduction of digital submission and automated initial screening of application documents, coupled with a review of existing verification protocols to ensure they remain robust and compliant with examination integrity standards. The correct answer is D. Implementing a phased introduction of digital submission and automated initial screening of application documents, coupled with a review of existing verification protocols to ensure they remain robust and compliant with examination integrity standards. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance the university's operational efficiency with the integrity of its admissions process, all within the specific regulatory framework of the Andong National University entrance exam. The pressure to optimize processes, while a common goal, must not compromise adherence to established examination rules and ethical conduct. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement improvements that are compliant and fair. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing admission procedures to identify bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the development and implementation of streamlined, technology-assisted processes that maintain or enhance the security and fairness of the examination. This approach is justified by the overarching regulatory framework of the Andong National University entrance exam, which prioritizes a transparent, equitable, and secure admission process. Any optimization must demonstrably uphold these principles, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated fairly and that the examination's integrity is preserved. This aligns with the ethical obligation to uphold the standards of academic institutions and the principles of fair competition. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing administrative costs without a thorough assessment of its impact on examination integrity would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the regulatory requirement to maintain a secure and fair examination, potentially leading to procedural loopholes or biases that could compromise the validity of the results. Another incorrect approach that involves bypassing established approval channels for process changes, even with the intention of speed, violates principles of good governance and regulatory compliance. Such actions undermine the structured and accountable nature of the examination process, risking unintended consequences and a lack of oversight. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of processing over the thorough verification of candidate qualifications or the security of examination materials would be a direct contravention of the exam's core objectives and regulatory mandates. This would erode trust in the admission system and could lead to unfair advantages or disadvantages for candidates. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the Andong National University entrance exam regulations. This should be followed by a risk assessment of any proposed process changes, evaluating their potential impact on fairness, security, and compliance. Solutions should be developed collaboratively with relevant stakeholders, ensuring that all changes are documented, approved through established channels, and thoroughly tested before implementation. Continuous monitoring and evaluation are crucial to ensure ongoing adherence to regulations and to identify any emergent issues. Question 4. The audit findings indicate significant delays and resource misallocation in the administrative processes supporting the Andong National University entrance examinations. These inefficiencies have led to increased operational costs and potential risks to the timely processing of applications and results. Considering the paramount importance of maintaining the integrity and fairness of the entrance examination process, as mandated by the Ministry of Education's guidelines for university admissions, which of the following approaches best addresses these audit findings while upholding regulatory compliance and ethical standards? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of current administrative workflows to identify specific bottlenecks and root causes of inefficiency, followed by the development of targeted process improvements and staff training, ensuring all changes are vetted for their impact on exam security and fairness. Option B. Outsource all non-core administrative functions related to the entrance examination, including applicant data management and initial screening, to external vendors to leverage their specialized expertise and reduce internal workload. Option C. Immediately implement a radical overhaul of the examination format and scoring system to streamline operations, prioritizing speed and cost reduction above all other considerations. Option D. Focus solely on increasing the budget allocated to the admissions office to hire more temporary staff, without investigating the underlying process issues that contribute to the identified delays. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review of current administrative workflows to identify specific bottlenecks and root causes of inefficiency, followed by the development of targeted process improvements and staff training, ensuring all changes are vetted for their impact on exam security and fairness. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's operational efficiency with the integrity of the admissions process, all while adhering to the specific regulations governing university entrance exams in South Korea, as stipulated by the Ministry of Education and relevant university guidelines. The pressure to streamline processes must not compromise fairness or the validity of the assessment. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the audit findings to identify root causes of inefficiencies, without compromising the security and fairness of the entrance examination. This approach prioritizes understanding the underlying issues before implementing changes. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of good governance and administrative transparency expected of educational institutions. The Ministry of Education's directives emphasize the importance of fair and equitable access to higher education, which necessitates a thorough and unbiased examination process. Any changes to process must be evaluated for their impact on this principle. An approach that immediately proposes significant changes to the examination format without a thorough root cause analysis is ethically flawed. It risks introducing new vulnerabilities or biases into the admissions process, potentially violating the principle of fairness. Such an approach fails to consider the potential negative consequences on the validity of the exam results and could lead to accusations of unfairness or discrimination, which are serious ethical and regulatory breaches under Korean educational law. Another incorrect approach, which focuses solely on cost reduction by outsourcing critical examination components without adequate due diligence, is also problematic. This could violate regulations concerning data privacy and the secure handling of sensitive applicant information. Furthermore, it might undermine the control and oversight necessary to maintain the integrity of the examination, a core responsibility of the university. The professional reasoning process should involve 1. Acknowledging the audit findings and their implications. 2. Conducting a detailed root cause analysis of identified inefficiencies. 3. Evaluating potential solutions against regulatory requirements, ethical principles of fairness and integrity, and the university's mission. 4. Piloting any proposed changes in a controlled manner to assess their effectiveness and impact. 5. Documenting all decisions and their justifications. Question 5. The audit findings indicate that the current process for distributing examination materials to remote testing centers for the Andong National University entrance exam is time-consuming and prone to minor delays. Considering the need for process optimization, which of the following actions would be most appropriate and compliant with the Andong National University entrance exam's regulatory framework? Option A. Develop and pilot a new digital distribution system for examination papers, allowing for near-instantaneous transfer to authorized personnel at remote centers, bypassing traditional physical courier services. Option B. Propose and implement a revised distribution schedule that consolidates shipments to fewer days, provided that all materials still arrive at least 24 hours before the examination begins, as per general logistical best practices. Option C. Suggest a reduction in the number of security checks performed on examination materials during transit to expedite the delivery process, assuming the risk of tampering is low. Option D. Recommend a review of the existing distribution regulations to identify specific provisions that could be modified to allow for more flexible, but still secure, delivery methods, potentially involving local partnerships for faster transit. The correct answer is B. Propose and implement a revised distribution schedule that consolidates shipments to fewer days, provided that all materials still arrive at least 24 hours before the examination begins, as per general logistical best practices. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the need for efficient process optimization and the absolute requirement to adhere to the specific regulatory framework of the Andong National University entrance exam. Misinterpreting or deviating from these established guidelines, even with the intention of improving efficiency, can lead to serious breaches of examination integrity and fairness, potentially invalidating results or leading to disciplinary action. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any optimization efforts are fully compliant with the spirit and letter of the exam regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the Andong National University entrance exam's official regulations concerning examination administration and process management. This includes understanding the prescribed procedures for question setting, security protocols, invigilation standards, and result tabulation. Optimization efforts must then be designed to enhance these existing, compliant processes without introducing any element that could compromise fairness, security, or the validity of the examination. For instance, if regulations specify a particular method for question paper distribution, any optimization must build upon or refine that method within its constraints, rather than proposing an entirely new, unapproved system. The regulatory justification lies in upholding the integrity of the entrance examination, as mandated by the university's governing bodies, and the Ministry of Education's guidelines for higher education admissions in South Korea. An incorrect approach would be to implement a new question paper distribution system that relies solely on digital transfer without explicit authorization within the Andong National University entrance exam regulations. This fails to acknowledge the specific security and logistical requirements that may be stipulated for physical examination materials, such as tamper-evident packaging or controlled access to digital files. Another incorrect approach would be to streamline the invigilation process by reducing the number of supervisors below the minimum stipulated by the exam guidelines, even if it appears more cost-effective. This directly violates the regulatory framework designed to ensure adequate oversight and prevent malpractice. A third incorrect approach would be to introduce a new scoring algorithm without prior approval and validation against the established scoring criteria defined by the university, as this could lead to inconsistencies and unfairness in candidate assessment, contravening the principles of equitable evaluation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance above all else when dealing with high-stakes examinations. This involves 1. Deeply understanding the specific regulations governing the Andong National University entrance exam. 2. Identifying areas for potential process improvement. 3. Proposing solutions that are demonstrably within the existing regulatory framework or seeking explicit approval for any deviations through the proper channels. 4. Conducting a risk assessment for any proposed changes, focusing on potential impacts on exam integrity, fairness, and compliance. 5. Documenting all proposed changes and approvals meticulously. Question 6. The audit findings indicate significant delays in processing applicant information and managing examination logistics for the Andong National University entrance exam due to outdated manual systems. Several potential process optimization strategies have been proposed to streamline these operations. Which of the following strategies best aligns with the principles of fairness, transparency, and adherence to Andong National University's entrance examination regulations? Option A. Introduce temporary manual overrides and expedited processing for all applicant inquiries and scheduling requests during the peak examination period, without formal documentation of these exceptions, to reduce immediate backlogs. Option B. Focus optimization efforts solely on reducing the number of administrative staff involved in the process, assuming that a smaller team will inherently lead to greater efficiency and fewer errors. Option C. Immediately transition to a cloud-based third-party application for all applicant data and scheduling, prioritizing speed of implementation and cost savings, with minimal staff training to expedite the process. Option D. Implement a phased rollout of a new integrated digital system for applicant data management and examination scheduling, preceded by thorough testing and a comprehensive training program for all relevant staff, ensuring all changes are documented and approved according to university policy. The correct answer is D. Implement a phased rollout of a new integrated digital system for applicant data management and examination scheduling, preceded by thorough testing and a comprehensive training program for all relevant staff, ensuring all changes are documented and approved according to university policy. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficient administrative processes with the fundamental rights and expectations of prospective students during a high-stakes entrance examination period. The pressure to quickly resolve issues and maintain operational flow can lead to shortcuts that compromise fairness and adherence to established university regulations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any process optimization does not inadvertently disadvantage applicants or violate the principles of transparency and equity. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the identified audit findings, focusing on understanding the root causes of the inefficiencies. This approach prioritizes data-driven decision-making and seeks to implement sustainable improvements that align with Andong National University's established policies and guidelines for admissions and examinations. By involving relevant stakeholders, such as the admissions committee and IT department, and conducting a thorough impact assessment, the university can ensure that any proposed changes are both effective and compliant with its regulatory framework. This proactive and thorough method upholds the integrity of the examination process and demonstrates a commitment to fair treatment of all applicants. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost reduction, without considering the impact on applicant experience or regulatory compliance, would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to the implementation of solutions that are superficial, fail to address the underlying issues, or even create new problems, potentially leading to appeals or complaints from applicants. Another incorrect approach that bypasses established review and approval processes for changes to examination administration systems, even if seemingly efficient, risks violating internal university governance and potentially external regulatory requirements for fair examination practices. Such an approach undermines transparency and accountability. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the problem, as identified by the audit. This involves gathering all relevant information, consulting applicable university regulations and guidelines, and assessing the potential consequences of various solutions. A structured approach, involving stakeholder consultation and impact analysis, is crucial for making informed decisions that are both operationally sound and ethically defensible, ensuring that the university's commitment to fairness and integrity is maintained. Question 7. The audit findings indicate that the current process for administering the Andong National University entrance examination is time-consuming and resource-intensive, leading to calls for significant process optimization. Which of the following approaches best addresses these findings while adhering to the university's commitment to fairness and regulatory compliance? Option A. Outsource all logistical aspects of the examination administration, including question paper distribution and answer sheet collection, to a third-party company to minimize internal workload and perceived costs. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of current administrative workflows, identify specific areas of inefficiency, and propose targeted, evidence-based improvements that are validated against Andong National University's examination regulations and best practices for academic integrity. Option C. Implement a new, fully digital examination platform procured from a vendor with minimal internal testing, believing that technological advancement will inherently improve efficiency. Option D. Immediately reduce the number of examination administrators by 20% to achieve cost savings and expedite the process, assuming that current staffing levels are excessive. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of current administrative workflows, identify specific areas of inefficiency, and propose targeted, evidence-based improvements that are validated against Andong National University's examination regulations and best practices for academic integrity. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficient administrative processes with the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair evaluation, as mandated by Andong National University's internal regulations and the broader Korean higher education framework. The pressure to streamline operations must not compromise the fundamental principles of a fair entrance examination. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the existing examination process to identify specific bottlenecks and inefficiencies, followed by the development of targeted, evidence-based solutions that align with Andong National University's established examination guidelines. This approach prioritizes a systematic and compliant method for process optimization, ensuring that any changes are well justified, documented, and do not inadvertently create opportunities for academic misconduct or disadvantage applicants. This aligns with the university's responsibility to maintain the credibility and fairness of its entrance examinations, a core tenet of its operational mandate. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the number of examination administrators, without a corresponding assessment of workload impact or the potential for increased errors, would be professionally unacceptable. This would violate the principle of adequate oversight and could lead to procedural irregularities, potentially compromising the integrity of the examination. Another incorrect approach, which involves implementing new, untested digital tools without proper pilot testing or validation against university standards, risks introducing unforeseen technical issues that could disrupt the examination process and unfairly affect applicants. This disregards the university's obligation to provide a stable and reliable examination environment. A third incorrect approach, which prioritizes cost savings by outsourcing critical examination administration tasks to external vendors without rigorous due diligence and oversight, could lead to a loss of control over sensitive data and procedural adherence, potentially violating data privacy regulations and the university's duty of care. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the regulatory and ethical obligations specific to Andong National University's entrance examinations. This involves identifying the core objectives of the audit findings, evaluating potential solutions against these objectives and relevant guidelines, and considering the potential impact on all stakeholders, particularly applicants. A systematic risk assessment and a phased implementation plan, with clear metrics for success and contingency measures, are crucial for ensuring that process optimization efforts are both effective and compliant. Question 8. The audit findings indicate significant delays in the processing of application documents for the Andong National University entrance examination, primarily due to manual data entry and cross-referencing. The admissions office is proposing to implement a new system that automatically flags applications with incomplete information for immediate rejection, without a secondary review, to expedite the overall process. Option A. Conduct a thorough review of the audit findings to identify the root causes of the delays. Explore alternative process optimizations that maintain a review stage for flagged applications, and ensure a robust appeals mechanism is in place. Option B. Immediately implement the proposed system to automatically reject applications flagged for incompleteness, prioritizing speed of processing above all else. Option C. Disregard the audit findings as a minor administrative inconvenience and continue with the current manual processing methods. Option D. Implement a tiered review process where applications flagged for incompleteness undergo a brief automated check for obvious errors before a final decision is made, with a clear appeals process for applicants. The correct answer is D. Implement a tiered review process where applications flagged for incompleteness undergo a brief automated check for obvious errors before a final decision is made, with a clear appeals process for applicants. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficient administrative processes with the fundamental principles of fairness and transparency in university admissions, as governed by Andong National University's specific entrance examination regulations. The pressure to streamline operations must not compromise the integrity of the selection process or lead to discriminatory practices. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the audit findings by the admissions committee, followed by a systematic analysis of the identified bottlenecks. This approach prioritizes understanding the root causes of the inefficiencies and developing targeted solutions that align with Andong National University's stated admission policies and any relevant South Korean educational guidelines for university entrance exams. This ensures that any proposed changes are compliant, equitable, and maintain the credibility of the admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a blanket policy of prioritizing applications based on the perceived ease of processing, without a deeper investigation. This fails to address the underlying issues and could lead to unfair advantages for certain applicants, potentially violating principles of equal opportunity enshrined in educational regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the audit findings as minor administrative issues without proper evaluation. This neglects the university's responsibility to maintain an efficient and fair admission system and could allow systemic problems to persist, undermining trust in the institution. A third incorrect approach would be to solely focus on technological solutions, without considering the human element and potential biases that might be introduced or exacerbated by automation, which could also contravene fairness principles. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the problem, followed by an evaluation of potential solutions against established regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines. This involves consulting relevant university policies, national educational directives, and seeking input from stakeholders to ensure that any implemented changes are both effective and compliant. Question 9. The control framework reveals a potential discrepancy in an applicant's submitted portfolio for the Andong National University entrance exam, where a significant award mentioned in the application is not readily verifiable through standard university channels. The admissions committee is under pressure to finalize selections quickly. Which of the following actions best aligns with the Andong National University entrance exam's regulatory framework and principles of academic integrity? Option A. Proceed with the admission of the applicant, assuming the award is legitimate, to expedite the selection process and avoid delaying the applicant's potential enrollment. Option B. Immediately reject the applicant's application due to the unverified award, prioritizing the avoidance of any potential misrepresentation in the admissions process. Option C. Initiate a formal verification process for the mentioned award by contacting the awarding institution or requesting further documentation from the applicant, while temporarily placing the application on hold. Option D. Advise the applicant to withdraw their application due to the inability to verify the award, thereby preventing further complications for both the applicant and the university. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the admission of the applicant, assuming the award is legitimate, to expedite the selection process and avoid delaying the applicant's potential enrollment. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to balance the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the practical pressures of admissions. The Andong National University entrance exam regulations, as per the provided context, emphasize fairness and transparency in the admissions process. A core principle is ensuring that all applicants are evaluated based on their merits and adherence to established examination procedures. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial review of all submitted documentation, including any supplementary materials, to verify their authenticity and compliance with Andong National University's entrance examination guidelines. This approach upholds the university's commitment to academic honesty and ensures a level playing field for all candidates. Specifically, the university's examination regulations likely stipulate procedures for handling discrepancies or potential irregularities, which would necessitate a systematic and documented investigation before any decision is made. This aligns with the ethical obligation to maintain the integrity of the examination process. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the supplementary materials without a proper review, as this could lead to an unfair assessment of the applicant's qualifications and a violation of the university's procedural fairness requirements. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the applicant based on a suspicion, without allowing for clarification or providing an opportunity for the applicant to address the concerns. This bypasses the established protocols for handling potential issues and could be seen as arbitrary and capricious, contradicting the principles of due process inherent in university admissions. Furthermore, accepting the supplementary materials without verifying their authenticity or relevance would undermine the credibility of the admissions process and potentially admit candidates who have not met the genuine requirements. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established regulations, ethical conduct, and procedural fairness. This involves 1. Understanding the specific rules and guidelines of the examination. 2. Identifying any potential issues or discrepancies. 3. Initiating a documented investigation process. 4. Providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond to any concerns. And 5. Making a final decision based on verified facts and regulatory compliance. Question 10. The efficiency study reveals that the current admissions process for Andong National University's entrance examination is time-consuming, particularly in the initial screening and document verification stages. To address this, a proposal has been made to streamline these early phases. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of process optimization, while strictly adhering to the Andong National University's entrance examination regulations and ethical standards for admissions? Option A. Expedite the initial screening by allowing admissions officers to make preliminary judgments based on a brief overview of application summaries, bypassing detailed document verification for a portion of applicants. Option B. Implement a phased review system where initial document checks are automated with a human audit of a statistically significant sample, and subsequent stages are optimized for faster turnaround without altering evaluation criteria. Option C. Reduce the number of required supporting documents for all applicants to shorten the initial verification period, assuming that fewer documents will lead to a more efficient review. Option D. Introduce a new scoring rubric for the initial application review that heavily weights extracurricular achievements and personal essays, allowing for faster categorization of candidates for further assessment. The correct answer is B. Implement a phased review system where initial document checks are automated with a human audit of a statistically significant sample, and subsequent stages are optimized for faster turnaround without altering evaluation criteria. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's desire for improved operational efficiency with the ethical imperative to maintain academic integrity and fairness in the admissions process. The pressure to demonstrate tangible improvements can lead to shortcuts that compromise these core values. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement process optimizations that are both effective and ethically sound. Adhering strictly to the Andong National University's established admission regulations and guidelines, the correct approach involves a systematic review of existing admission processes, identifying bottlenecks or areas of redundancy, and proposing modifications that streamline operations without altering the fundamental criteria or fairness of evaluation. This approach aligns with the spirit of process optimization by seeking efficiency gains through intelligent redesign rather than compromising the integrity of the selection process. Specifically, it adheres to Andong National University's entrance examination regulations by ensuring that any changes do not introduce bias, reduce the rigor of assessment, or circumvent established procedures for candidate evaluation. The focus remains on improving the how of the process, not the what or the who of the admissions criteria. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the time taken for document verification by automating it without a robust human oversight mechanism fails to consider the potential for errors or the need for nuanced judgment in verifying complex application documents. This could lead to the admission of unqualified candidates or the rejection of deserving ones, violating the principle of fair and equitable assessment mandated by the university's entrance examination guidelines. Another incorrect approach that suggests prioritizing applications based on perceived potential rather than the established objective criteria outlined in the university's admission regulations introduces subjectivity and bias. This deviates from the transparent and merit-based selection process that the regulations are designed to uphold, potentially leading to unfair advantages for some applicants and undermining the credibility of the admissions outcome. A third incorrect approach that proposes reducing the number of evaluation stages to speed up the process, without a thorough analysis of whether each stage is truly redundant or essential for comprehensive assessment, risks overlooking critical aspects of a candidate's suitability. This could compromise the thoroughness of the evaluation, potentially leading to suboptimal admissions decisions and failing to meet the university's standards for selecting qualified students as defined in its entrance examination framework. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the governing regulations and ethical principles. This involves identifying the specific objectives of process optimization, brainstorming potential solutions, and then rigorously evaluating each solution against the established regulatory framework and ethical considerations. A critical step is to assess the potential impact of any proposed change on fairness, transparency, and the integrity of the outcome. Pilot testing and seeking feedback from relevant stakeholders, including admissions committees and administrative staff, are also crucial before full implementation. Question 11. The audit findings indicate that a company seeking admission to Andong National University's business program has several material misstatements in its financial statements, including an overstatement of revenue and an understatement of liabilities. The applicant, who is the primary financial officer of this company, has submitted these financial statements as part of their application. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the applicant? Option A. Submit a brief addendum to the original application stating that the audit findings are minor and do not significantly impact the overall financial health of the company, without providing further details or revised statements. Option B. Ignore the audit findings in the application materials, assuming the university will not scrutinize the financial statements in detail. Option C. Submit a revised set of financial statements, but omit any mention of the audit findings or the reasons for the corrections, presenting them as the original, accurate figures. Option D. Submit a revised set of financial statements that accurately reflect the company's financial position, accompanied by a detailed explanation of the audit findings, the reasons for the misstatements, and the corrective actions taken. The correct answer is D. Submit a revised set of financial statements that accurately reflect the company's financial position, accompanied by a detailed explanation of the audit findings, the reasons for the misstatements, and the corrective actions taken. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential misstatement in the financial statements of a company applying for admission to Andong National University's business program. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to demonstrate not only an understanding of accounting principles, but also the ability to critically evaluate audit evidence and its implications within the context of university admission standards. The applicant must discern between genuine errors, potential fraud, and minor discrepancies, and then articulate a reasoned response that aligns with academic integrity and the university's admission criteria. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the audit report to understand the nature and materiality of the identified misstatements. This includes assessing whether the misstatements, if uncorrected, would significantly distort the financial picture presented to the university for admission evaluation. The applicant should then prepare a clear and concise explanation that addresses the specific findings, outlines the corrective actions taken or proposed, and provides supporting documentation. This demonstrates accountability, transparency, and a commitment to accurate financial reporting, which are crucial for academic integrity and the university's assessment of the applicant's suitability. This aligns with the ethical principles of honesty and diligence expected in academic and professional settings. As implicitly required by the Andong National University entrance, exams focus on assessing a candidate's preparedness and integrity. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the audit findings as insignificant without proper analysis. This fails to acknowledge the importance of accurate financial information and the diligence expected of applicants. It suggests a lack of critical thinking and a potential disregard for established reporting standards, which are fundamental to business education. Another incorrect approach would be to present incomplete or misleading information about the audit findings. This directly violates principles of honesty and transparency. The university relies on accurate information to make admission decisions, and any attempt to obscure or misrepresent facts would be a serious ethical breach, undermining the integrity of the entire application process. A further incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the technical accounting aspects of the misstatements without considering their impact on the overall financial health and presentation of the company. While technical accuracy is important, the university is also assessing the applicant's ability to understand the broader implications of financial data and to communicate them effectively. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves 1. Understanding the context and purpose of the information being presented, in this case, university admission. 2. Thoroughly reviewing all available evidence, the audit report. 3. Objectively assessing the materiality and implications of any discrepancies. 4. Communicating findings and actions clearly, honestly, and transparently. 5. Seeking clarification or further information if needed. Question 12. Upon reviewing a student's draft essay for the Andong National University entrance exam, an examiner notices that several passages appear to be very similar to published academic sources, though no citations are present. The student, when questioned, asks for advice on how to make it sound different without explicitly admitting to plagiarism. What is the most appropriate course of action for the examiner? Option A. Immediately report the student to the university's disciplinary committee for suspected academic misconduct. Option B. Advise the student on techniques to rephrase sentences and alter vocabulary to avoid detection of similarity without directly mentioning the term plagiarism. Option C. Ignore the student's question and proceed with evaluating the essay based on its current content, assuming the student will correct any issues independently. Option D. Explain the university's policy on plagiarism and academic misconduct, emphasizing the importance of proper citation and the consequences of submitting unoriginal work, while offering resources for academic writing support. The correct answer is D. Explain the university's policy on plagiarism and academic misconduct, emphasizing the importance of proper citation and the consequences of submitting unoriginal work, while offering resources for academic writing support. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to present their work and the university's academic integrity policies. The pressure to succeed in a competitive entrance exam environment can sometimes lead students to consider shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards while also guiding students towards legitimate academic practices. The correct approach involves directly addressing the student's request by explaining the university's policy on plagiarism and academic misconduct. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with the Andong National University's commitment to academic integrity. By clearly communicating the consequences of plagiarism and offering resources for proper citation and research, the examiner upholds the university's regulatory framework, which emphasizes honesty and original work. This proactive educational stance helps prevent future misconduct and reinforces the importance of ethical academic behavior. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's question or dismiss it without explanation. This fails to address the potential ethical lapse and misses an opportunity to educate the student on academic integrity. It could be interpreted as tacit approval or indifference, which is contrary to the university's responsibility to foster an ethical academic environment. Another incorrect approach would be to provide the student with specific examples of how to rephrase existing content without explicitly mentioning the prohibition of plagiarism. While seemingly helpful, this could inadvertently guide the student towards academic dishonesty by suggesting methods that skirt the edges of acceptable practice without a clear understanding of the underlying ethical principles. This approach lacks transparency and fails to adequately safeguard academic integrity. A further incorrect approach would be to report the student to the disciplinary committee without first attempting to educate them about the university's policies. While reporting misconduct is sometimes necessary, a more constructive initial step in this situation is to provide guidance and clarification. This approach can be overly punitive and may not be the most effective way to foster a long-term commitment to academic honesty. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a commitment to upholding academic integrity, a clear understanding of university policies, and a focus on educating students. When faced with a potential ethical dilemma, professionals should first assess the situation against established regulations and ethical guidelines. If a student appears to be seeking guidance on potentially unethical practices, the professional should prioritize clear communication about policies, offer educational resources, and explain the rationale behind these rules. The goal is to guide students towards ethical conduct and prevent academic misconduct through education and clear boundaries. Question 13. Market research demonstrates a growing interest among prospective students in interdisciplinary programs that combine technology and humanities. The admissions committee for the Andong National University entrance exam is considering how to best leverage this information to enhance the university's appeal and attract a diverse pool of high-achieving applicants. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for the Andong National University entrance exam? Option A. Directly incorporate the market research findings into the admission scoring rubric, giving preferential consideration to applicants whose stated interests or academic backgrounds align with the identified trends in technology and humanities to strategically boost enrollment in these areas. Option B. Commission further market research to identify specific high school programs or extracurricular activities that correlate with the identified student interest, and then use this information to proactively recruit students from those specific backgrounds, potentially bypassing some standard evaluation steps. Option C. Utilize the market research to inform the development of new interdisciplinary program offerings and to refine marketing strategies to highlight existing relevant courses, while ensuring all admissions decisions remain based on the established academic criteria and individual applicant merit, as per the exam regulations. Option D. Advise the marketing department to focus solely on traditional, high-demand programs and to avoid any mention of interdisciplinary or emerging fields, as the market research might introduce complexities that could be perceived as deviations from established exam protocols. The correct answer is C. Utilize the market research to inform the development of new interdisciplinary program offerings and to refine marketing strategies to highlight existing relevant courses, while ensuring all admissions decisions remain based on the established academic criteria and individual applicant merit, as per the exam regulations. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations of fair and transparent admissions processes, all within the specific regulatory framework of the Andong National University entrance exam. The core tension lies in leveraging market research insights without compromising the integrity and equity of the selection process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any use of such data is compliant with established guidelines and upholds the principles of meritocracy and equal opportunity. The correct approach involves a nuanced integration of market research findings into the admission strategy, focusing on understanding broader applicant trends and program appeal, rather than directly influencing individual applicant evaluations. This approach is ethically sound and regulatorily compliant because it uses market research for strategic planning and resource allocation, such as identifying areas for program development or improving outreach to underrepresented demographics. It respects the principle that admissions decisions must be based on objective criteria and the individual merits of each applicant, as stipulated by the Andong National University entrance exam regulations, which prioritize academic achievement and suitability for the chosen program. An incorrect approach that directly uses market research to identify or favor specific applicant profiles for admission, even if framed as strategic targeting, represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This would violate the principle of equal opportunity and could lead to accusations of bias or unfair advantage, undermining the credibility of the admissions process. Such an approach would contravene the spirit and likely the letter of the Andong National University entrance exam guidelines, which are designed to ensure a level playing field for all prospective students. Another incorrect approach, which dismisses market research entirely due to potential ethical concerns, is also professionally suboptimal. While caution is warranted, a complete disregard for market insights can lead to missed opportunities for program improvement and a failure to adapt to evolving educational landscapes and student interests. This can indirectly harm the university's long-term competitiveness and its ability to serve its mission effectively. Professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the Andong National University entrance exam's specific regulations and ethical guidelines. Professionals should first identify the objective of the market research and then assess its potential applications against these established frameworks. A critical step is to distinguish between using research for strategic systemic improvement, e.g., curriculum development, marketing strategies, and using it for individual applicant assessment, which is generally prohibited. When in doubt, seeking clarification from relevant university committees or regulatory bodies is essential to ensure compliance and maintain ethical standards. Question 14. The audit findings indicate that a company in which you hold a significant ownership stake has been flagged for several material weaknesses in internal controls related to revenue recognition. These weaknesses, if unaddressed, could lead to misstatements in the company's financial performance. You are currently in the process of applying for admission to the prestigious business program at Andong National University, and the application requires you to submit recent financial statements of any businesses you are substantially involved with. Considering this situation, which of the following actions best reflects a professional and ethical approach to your university application? Option A. Submit the financial statements along with a detailed addendum that clearly outlines the audit findings, explains the nature of the weaknesses, and describes the specific corrective actions being implemented to address them. Option B. Submit the financial statements and provide a brief, generalized statement that the company is undergoing routine operational improvements without detailing the specific audit findings. Option C. Submit the financial statements without mentioning the audit findings, assuming the university will not delve deeply into the internal control aspects. Option D. Withdraw your application to the business program, believing that any association with a company facing internal control issues would jeopardize your admission chances. The correct answer is C. Submit the financial statements without mentioning the audit findings, assuming the university will not delve deeply into the internal control aspects. Explanation: the audit findings indicate a potential misstatement in the financial statements of a company applying for admission to Andong National University's business program. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to demonstrate not only an understanding of accounting principles, but also the ability to critically evaluate audit evidence and its implications within the context of university admission standards. The applicant must discern whether the identified issues are minor procedural oversights or significant indicators of financial misrepresentation that could impact the university's assessment of their academic integrity and suitability. The correct approach involves a thorough and transparent disclosure of the audit findings, coupled with a clear explanation of the steps taken to rectify any identified discrepancies. This demonstrates accountability, a commitment to accurate financial reporting, and an understanding of professional ethics. Specifically, the applicant should present the audit report, detail the nature of the findings, and outline the corrective actions implemented. This aligns with the principles of honesty and integrity expected in academic and professional settings, as well as the implicit requirement for applicants to provide truthful and complete information during the admission process. An incorrect approach would be to downplay or omit the audit findings. This failure to disclose material information is a direct violation of the principle of honesty and can be interpreted as an attempt to mislead the admissions committee. Another incorrect approach is to provide a vague or misleading explanation of the findings and corrective actions. This lacks transparency and fails to instill confidence in the applicant's judgment and commitment to ethical conduct. Such omissions or misrepresentations undermine the credibility of the applicant and are contrary to the ethical standards that Andong National University would expect its students to uphold. Professionals faced with similar situations should adopt a framework of transparency, accuracy, and accountability. This involves a proactive approach to disclosing relevant information, even if it appears unfavorable. The decision-making process should prioritize adherence to ethical principles and regulatory requirements, ensuring that all representations are truthful and complete. In this context, the applicant must consider the university's implicit expectation of integrity in all submitted materials. Question 15. Examination of the data shows that a prospective student's submitted essay for the Andong National University entrance exam contains passages that bear a strong resemblance to publicly available online academic articles. While the student has cited some sources, the extent of the similarity in phrasing and structure in certain sections raises concerns about potential academic dishonesty. The university's entrance exam guidelines emphasize the importance of original work and proper attribution of all sources. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to take in this situation? Option A. Conduct a detailed comparison of the student's essay with the suspected source materials to determine if the similarities constitute plagiarism according to Andong National University's academic integrity policy. And if so, proceed with the established disciplinary procedures. Option B. Request the student to rewrite the entire essay, focusing on original expression, without explicitly addressing the concerns about the original submission. Option C. Accept the student's application without further investigation, assuming the similarities are coincidental or a result of common academic phrasing. Option D. Immediately disqualify the student's application due to the strong resemblance of their work to existing materials, assuming academic dishonesty. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed comparison of the student's essay with the suspected source materials to determine if the similarities constitute plagiarism according to Andong National University's academic integrity policy, and if so, proceed with the established disciplinary procedures. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to present their work accurately and the university's established academic integrity policies. The pressure of a high-stakes entrance exam, coupled with the potential for misinterpretation of source material, necessitates careful judgment to uphold ethical standards while respecting the student's efforts. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the student's submitted work, comparing it against the original sources to identify any instances of improper attribution or unintentional plagiarism. This process requires a nuanced understanding of academic honesty guidelines, which typically distinguish between accidental oversights and deliberate attempts to deceive. By focusing on the substance of the student's contribution and the clarity of their referencing, this approach aligns with the principles of fairness and academic integrity mandated by Andong National University's entrance exam regulations. These regulations emphasize the importance of original thought and proper citation, ensuring a level playing field for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the student's application based on a superficial review or a presumption of academic misconduct. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of genuine error or misunderstanding of citation requirements, which is a common challenge for students. Such an approach violates the principle of due process and can lead to unfair penalization. Another incorrect approach would be to overlook potential issues of improper attribution, even if they appear minor. This undermines the university's commitment to academic honesty and sets a dangerous precedent, potentially allowing unqualified or dishonest candidates to gain admission. Ignoring such issues compromises the integrity of the entrance examination process. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes thorough investigation, adherence to established university policies, and a commitment to fairness. This involves 1. Understanding the specific academic integrity policies of Andong National University. 2. Conducting a detailed, objective review of the submitted work. 3. Seeking clarification from the student if ambiguities arise. And 4. Making a decision based on evidence and policy, rather than assumption or expediency. Question 16. Assessment of how an admissions committee at Andong National University should evaluate an applicant who has demonstrated exceptional leadership in extracurricular activities and a compelling personal statement, but whose entrance exam scores are slightly below the average of admitted students, considering the university's stated commitment to admitting well-rounded individuals alongside academic excellence. Option A. Prioritize the applicant's strong extracurricular leadership and personal statement, admitting them as a demonstration of the university's commitment to holistic admissions, even if their exam scores are below average. Option B. Reject the applicant solely based on their entrance exam scores being below the average, adhering strictly to a quantitative benchmark for admission. Option C. Offer the applicant a conditional admission, requiring them to achieve a certain academic standing in their first semester to secure their place, thereby balancing academic potential with demonstrated non-academic strengths. Option D. Consider the applicant's extracurricular leadership and personal statement as significant supplementary factors, but ultimately base the admission decision primarily on their entrance exam scores, potentially offering a place if they fall within a narrowly defined acceptable range below the average. The correct answer is A. Prioritize the applicant's strong extracurricular leadership and personal statement, admitting them as a demonstration of the university's commitment to holistic admissions, even if their exam scores are below average. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in university admissions, balancing academic merit with the need to foster a diverse and well-rounded student body, while adhering to the specific regulations and guidelines of the Andong National University entrance exam. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the university's stated admission principles, in a way that is fair, transparent, and compliant with the examination framework. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any deviation from purely academic metrics is justifiable and does not compromise the integrity of the selection process. The correct approach involves a holistic review that considers the applicant's academic record as the primary criterion, but also allows for the consideration of extracurricular achievements and personal statements as supplementary evidence of potential and suitability for the university. This approach is justified by the Andong National University Entrance Exam's stated goal of admitting students who not only possess strong academic foundations, but also demonstrate qualities such as leadership, creativity, and a commitment to community, as outlined in the university's admissions policy. This aligns with the principle of selecting candidates who can contribute to the university's broader academic and social environment, as permitted by the exam's framework for evaluating candidates beyond raw scores. An incorrect approach would be to solely prioritize applicants with the highest test scores, disregarding other aspects of their application. This fails to acknowledge the university's stated intention to consider a broader range of attributes and could lead to the exclusion of highly promising candidates who may excel in areas not directly measured by standardized tests, thus contravening the spirit of the admissions guidelines. Another incorrect approach would be to give undue weight to extracurricular activities or personal statements to the extent that they overshadow academic performance. This would violate the fundamental principle that academic achievement is the primary determinant of a candidate's readiness for university-level study, as implicitly understood within the context of a competitive entrance examination. Such an approach could lead to the admission of less academically prepared students, potentially impacting the overall academic standards of the university. A further incorrect approach would be to introduce subjective criteria that are not clearly defined within the university's admissions framework or the entrance exam regulations. This could include personal biases or arbitrary preferences, leading to an unfair and potentially discriminatory selection process, which is ethically and regulatorily unacceptable. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the Andong National University Entrance Exams regulations and the university's admissions policy. Admissions committees should establish clear, objective criteria for evaluating all aspects of an application, ensuring transparency and consistency. When considering factors beyond academic scores, the rationale for their inclusion and weighting must be explicitly defined and defensible within the established framework. Regular review and calibration of the admissions process are also crucial to ensure ongoing fairness and compliance. Question 17. Which approach would be most effective in evaluating the fairness and validity of the Andong National University Entrance Exam, considering its specific regulatory framework and stated objectives? Option A. An assessment based solely on the statistical distribution of scores, without considering the alignment of questions with the intended learning objectives or regulatory guidelines. Option B. A review of the exam structure and content by comparing it to the entrance examinations of other national universities in South Korea. Option C. An analysis of student feedback regarding the perceived difficulty and clarity of the exam questions, prioritizing subjective student opinions. Option D. A comparative analysis of the exam's question types and difficulty levels against the official curriculum and learning outcomes stipulated by Andong National University, ensuring adherence to all relevant examination regulations. The correct answer is D. A comparative analysis of the exam's question types and difficulty levels against the official curriculum and learning outcomes stipulated by Andong National University, ensuring adherence to all relevant examination regulations. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate a nuanced understanding of how different analytical frameworks can be applied to a single problem, specifically in the context of university entrance examinations. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate method for evaluating the effectiveness of an exam's design and implementation, considering the specific regulatory environment of the Andong National University entrance exam. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between methods that offer superficial insights and those that provide a robust, evidence-based assessment aligned with the exam's stated objectives and governing principles. The correct approach involves a comparative analysis that directly assesses the alignment of the exam's content and structure with the stated learning outcomes and the specific regulations governing the Andong National University entrance exam. This method is correct because it grounds the evaluation in the university's own academic standards and the legal/regulatory framework it must adhere to. By examining how well the exam measures the intended knowledge and skills, and whether it complies with all stipulated guidelines, this approach provides a comprehensive and contextually relevant assessment of the exam's effectiveness. It directly addresses the core purpose of an entrance exam, to fairly and accurately select qualified candidates according to established criteria. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the perceived difficulty of the questions without reference to the curriculum or learning objectives fails to acknowledge the exam's purpose. This is ethically and regulatorily unsound, as difficulty is subjective and not a direct measure of whether the exam fulfills its intended function of assessing specific competencies. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes student feedback on question clarity over objective performance metrics overlooks the importance of measurable outcomes. While feedback is valuable, it should inform, not dictate, the assessment of an exam's validity and reliability, especially when regulatory compliance is paramount. Finally, an approach that relies on comparing the exam to entrance exams from other universities, without considering the unique context and regulations of the Andong National University entrance exam, is flawed. This ignores the specific jurisdiction and its requirements, leading to an irrelevant and potentially misleading evaluation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the evaluation criteria based on the specific regulatory framework and objectives of the Andong National University entrance exam. This involves understanding what the exam is designed to measure and the rules it must follow. Subsequently, they should identify and apply analytical methods that directly address these criteria, prioritizing those that offer objective, evidence-based insights. Comparative analysis, when focused on internal alignment with stated goals and external compliance with regulations, is a robust method. This process requires a critical assessment of the strengths and weaknesses of each potential analytical approach in relation to the specific context of the Andong National University entrance exam. Question 18. Implementation of a fair and transparent admissions process at Andong National University requires careful consideration when an applicant is credibly accused of academic misconduct during their final year of high school. Which of the following actions best upholds the university's commitment to academic integrity and due process? Option A. Publicly announce that the university is investigating the applicant's conduct to deter future misconduct among prospective students. Option B. Immediately inform the applicant that their admission is contingent upon a satisfactory explanation and initiate a formal investigation according to university policy, allowing the applicant to present their perspective. Option C. Advise the applicant that due to the serious nature of the accusation, they should consider withdrawing their application to avoid further complications. Option D. Disregard the accusation as it pertains to events outside of the university's direct purview and proceed with the admission decision, based solely on submitted academic records. The correct answer is B. Immediately inform the applicant that their admission is contingent upon a satisfactory explanation and initiate a formal investigation according to university policy, allowing the applicant to present their perspective. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing admissions under pressure. The core issue is how to respond to a potential instance of academic dishonesty that could impact an applicant's eligibility. Careful judgment is required to ensure fairness to the applicant, uphold the university's standards, and comply with its own admission regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation into the alleged academic misconduct. This means gathering all relevant evidence, providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond to the allegations, and making a decision based on established university policies and procedures for academic integrity. This approach is ethically sound and legally defensible, as it respects due process and ensures that decisions are made on objective grounds, aligning with Andong National University's commitment to academic honesty as outlined in its admissions guidelines and student conduct policies. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the applicant without a proper investigation. This fails to uphold the principle of natural justice, which requires that individuals be given a fair hearing before a decision is made that affects them. It also risks making an erroneous judgment potentially denying a deserving candidate admission based on unsubstantiated claims. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the allegations altogether. This would undermine the university's academic standards and could set a precedent for future applicants to believe that academic misconduct will not be addressed, thereby eroding the integrity of the admissions process. Finally, an approach that involves pressuring the applicant to withdraw without a formal process is ethically questionable and could be seen as an attempt to circumvent the university's own disciplinary procedures. Professionals in university admission should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to established policies. This involves 1. Acknowledging and documenting any credible allegations of misconduct. 2. Initiating a formal investigation process as per university regulations. 3. Ensuring the applicant is informed of the allegations and given a reasonable opportunity to present their case. 4. Making a decision based on the evidence gathered and in accordance with university policies. 5. Maintaining clear and objective communication throughout the process. Question 19. The assessment process reveals that a candidate's submitted art portfolio for the Andong National University entrance exam contains several pieces that bear a striking resemblance to well-known contemporary artworks, raising concerns about originality and potential copyright infringement. Which of the following actions best aligns with the principles of academic integrity and fair evaluation as expected in this examination context? Option A. Accept the portfolio as submitted, assuming the similarities are coincidental or represent legitimate artistic inspiration, and proceed with the evaluation. Option B. Immediately disqualify the candidate for suspected plagiarism and copyright violation without further inquiry. Option C. Conduct a thorough comparative analysis of the candidate's work against existing artworks, seeking evidence of unauthorized reproduction or substantial imitation, and follow university procedures for suspected academic misconduct if warranted. Option D. Issue a warning to the candidate about the similarities and accept the portfolio with a note of caution, without a definitive judgment on originality. Correct answer is B. Immediately disqualify the candidate for suspected plagiarism and copyright violation without further inquiry. Explanation. The assessment process for the Andong National University entrance exam presents a scenario where a candidate's submitted portfolio, intended to showcase their artistic talent, contains elements that appear to be heavily influenced by, or directly copied from, existing copyrighted works without proper attribution. This situation is professionally challenging, because it requires the exam administrators to balance the need to fairly evaluate a candidate's genuine abilities with the ethical and legal obligations to uphold academic integrity and respect intellectual property rights. Misjudging this situation could lead to either unfairly penalizing a candidate who genuinely learned from existing works or, conversely, allowing academic dishonesty to pass unchecked, undermining the credibility of the entire examination process. The correct approach involves a thorough investigation into the originality of the submitted work, focusing on identifying clear instances of plagiarism or copyright infringement. This approach is ethically and regulatorily justified by the Andong National University's stated commitment to academic honesty and the principles of fair evaluation, as outlined in its entrance examination guidelines. Specifically, these guidelines likely emphasize the importance of original work and prohibit the submission of plagiarized material. A careful review would involve comparing the submitted portfolio against known artistic works, seeking evidence of unauthorized reproduction or substantial imitation. If plagiarism or copyright infringement is confirmed, the appropriate action, as per university policy, would be to disqualify the candidate for violating academic integrity standards. This upholds the principle of a level playing field for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the candidate based on a superficial resemblance, without conducting a proper investigation. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of legitimate inspiration or homage, and it bypasses the due process expected in academic evaluations. It is ethically problematic as it assumes guilt without proof and regulatorily unsound, as it deviates from established procedures for handling suspected academic misconduct. Another incorrect approach would be to overlook the potential issues entirely, assuming the work is original or that minor similarities are inconsequential. This approach is ethically negligent as it fails to uphold the university's standards of academic integrity and risks allowing dishonesty to go unaddressed. Regulatorily, it violates the spirit and likely the letter of guidelines that mandate the evaluation of original contributions. A third incorrect approach might be to accept the work with a note of caution without a definitive resolution. This is professionally indecisive and fails to provide a clear outcome for the candidate or the examination process. It neither upholds academic integrity nor provides a fair assessment of the candidate's true capabilities, leaving the situation ambiguous and potentially unfair. The professional decision-making process in such a scenario should involve a systematic approach. First, clearly define the criteria for originality and acceptable influence, as per the Andong National University's entrance exam regulations. Second, conduct a detailed comparative analysis of the submitted work against potential sources, documenting any similarities. Third, if significant similarities are found, follow the established university procedure for addressing suspected academic misconduct, which typically involves providing the candidate an opportunity to explain their work and potentially presenting evidence of their creative process. Finally, make a decision based on the evidence gathered and in strict adherence to the university's academic integrity policies. Question 20. During the evaluation of potential essay questions for the Andong National University entrance exam in Korean literature, a question designer proposes to assess a candidate's understanding of modern Korean poetry. Which of the following approaches to question generation best aligns with the strict regulatory framework and guidelines of the Andong National University entrance exam? Option A. Generating a question that prompts candidates to discuss the socio-political influences on modern Korean poetry, assuming candidates have access to and have studied external academic journals not listed in the official syllabus. Option B. Generating a question that requires candidates to analyze the thematic evolution of modern Korean poetry, referencing specific poets and works explicitly covered in the Andong National University's official Korean literature syllabus. Option C. Generating a question that focuses on the biographical details of prominent modern Korean poets, encouraging candidates to infer their poetic intentions based on their life experiences, even if these connections are not explicitly detailed in the prescribed curriculum. Option D. Generating a question that asks candidates to compare the stylistic innovations of modern Korean poetry with those of contemporary Japanese poetry, drawing on their general knowledge of East Asian literary trends. The correct answer is B. Generating a question that requires candidates to analyze the thematic evolution of modern Korean poetry, referencing specific poets and works explicitly covered in the Andong National University's official Korean literature syllabus. Explanation. During the evaluation of university entrance exam questions for Andong National University, a critical challenge arises in ensuring that the questions accurately assess a candidate's understanding of the specified curriculum and adhere strictly to the examination's regulatory framework. This requires a nuanced approach that balances academic rigor with fairness and compliance. The professional challenge lies in crafting questions that are not only relevant, but also free from ambiguity, bias, and any reliance on external knowledge not covered by the Andong National University's official syllabus. The correct approach involves a comparative analysis of potential question formulations against the stated learning objectives and content outlined in the Andong National University entrance exam guidelines. This method ensures that the question directly probes the intended knowledge or skill as defined by the university's academic standards. Specifically, it requires the question designer to meticulously cross-reference the question's scope and difficulty with the official curriculum documents and past examination papers, if available, to gauge appropriateness and alignment. This adherence to the specific regulatory framework of the Andong National University entrance exam is paramount for maintaining the integrity and validity of the assessment process. An incorrect approach would be to formulate a question based on general knowledge or common academic understanding, without verifying its inclusion in the Andong National University's prescribed syllabus. This fails to meet the core requirement of assessing candidates on material they are expected to know according to the university's specific academic standards. Another incorrect approach is to create a question that, while related to a broad subject area, requires inferential leaps or the application of concepts not explicitly taught or tested within the Andong National University's curriculum. This introduces an element of unfairness, as candidates who have diligently studied the prescribed material may be disadvantaged. A third incorrect approach involves designing a question that, even if conceptually sound, is phrased in a way that is open to multiple interpretations, thereby testing the candidate's ability to decipher ambiguous language rather than their subject matter knowledge. This undermines the clarity and objectivity expected in an entrance examination. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic review of the question against the established examination guidelines. This includes seeking peer review from colleagues familiar with the Andong National University's curriculum, and if possible, consulting with subject matter experts who are also aware of the examination's specific requirements. The ultimate goal is to ensure that every question is a fair, accurate, and relevant measure of a candidate's preparedness for Andong National University.